Okie, good choice. It's cool.
On Cosmic Disclosure, we've heard about all types of different ET technologies from our friend Emery Smith, but today he will talk with us about different types of extraterrestrial devices. Emery, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, George.
Now, when I hear extraterrestrial devices, I think of Star Trek and that wand that the doc had. What are we talking about here?
Well, that's a part of a frequency device that is actually made it to mainstream civilian use. It's called a scanar, cosmotic energy. And what it does is it's able to, like a Rife machine, use frequency to balance out cells and also communicate with cells to go to an area of the body, to fix an area, to heal a bone, and things like that. So this is a lot of the reverse engineered stuff that was found many years ago and perfected today and made it to like mainstream.
What kind of other devices have you witnessed?
Well, the most fascinating thing that has been discovered that I'm fascinated by is the types of materials that we recover from these sites. And because the materials are what end up later on, being used, such as carbon fiber and things to make bulletproof vests.
Now, how do you recover them from sites? Crash sites?
Yeah, from crash sites.
All right.
We were on a couple of retrieval teams for medical reasons, but there's also other things, of course, that are there on these sites, such as liquid metals and different types of substances and chemicals that we just don't have here on Earth. And those are all used as well in extraterrestrial technology. Whether they have tools too. Everything's doesn't just float around in the air. They have special tools that are mostly energetic, and that's what's interesting. You might see something that looks just like an egg-shaped rock that you'd find on one of your hikes, but yet it's not. It's actually a device that emits an energy that can fix your craft, we'll say. They also use a lot of crystals on board their craft, which is very interesting as well. So these things are taken back and reverse engineered and into many different types of things.
Are they the same kind of crystals we have on this planet now?
Yeah, they're very similar, but they're it looks like they were definitely more maybe lab grown because they were so brilliant and they had very different cuts to them, unlike we see here. Of course, the colors were extraordinary, unlike any other crystals that I've seen here on Earth. And some of them are up to maybe 10 to 20 feet long, rectangular, and are the floor, are like the floor of the craft. And it goes down like an upside down triangle. It's a power source, and it's like a hard drive. So it actually, can record, and it can actually power the craft they learned, and gives off, all sorts of different frequencies, and in a way is alive in its own spectrum. Crystals alone have many capabilities. Depending on what you're using the crystal for, what kind of light you're shining through it, what kind of laser you're engraving information into it.
Right.
But crystals do have the capability of becoming of being weapons, and crystals also have the ability to heal. And ETs obviously know about crystals because a lot of their technology has crystals in them. Look at our TV sets. The first TVs. Look at our radios. I mean, when they have a
transistor crystal.
Just a crystal. Right?
That's a good point.
So How did we know that?
When you hear the word and phrase intelligent technologies, what does that mean to you?
Well, for me, it's consciousness-assisted technology.
What is that?
And that's because most of all their stuff, whether it's a tool or a weapon or a craft, it's all assisted by your consciousness. So through telepathy, you can actually activate something, or through the bioidentical imprint of the genetic makeup of that extraterrestrial, it turns it on.
You could turn your car on with your consciousness if it was wired the right way.
Right, or pick up on your energy frequency of your DNA, because everyone has a different frequency of their DNA, like a thumbprint. And everyone's energetic DNA is now recorded on the planet, basically. So it's identifying, this person is the person that belongs to this craft, and only the people that are registered with their frequency can fly this craft.
What other kind of intelligent technologies did they have?
Well, like I said, some of the most impressive ones were all consciousness assisted. And the reason I got brought into some of these projects was because once I was working on some, samples of tissue, I'll say, it was related to a craft that I didn't even know they had in the same, I'll say, sector where I was working. And they wanted me to come take samples of the craft. And I was like, to me, at that time was, I don't ask questions. I get escorted to a giant hangar, and here's this craft, and it's a very fleshy type of craft, and the craft obviously is alive. And taking samples from this craft and comparing it to the tissue sample I've had, it was the exact same DNA. So what I'm getting at is the person who had this craft, he made this craft from his own genetic DNA. And we found out later that they were forming these craft by frequency. And that means, it's always sound before form. So you can create anything in space using frequency and genetic DNA makeup. So this is one of the most profound things that I ever witnessed in my life. And there's also there was compartments in this craft, and the craft had tools in there. Like they looked like, I would say, tools, very odd shaped but very organic looking.
Huh.
Everything always looked like some sort of rock or stone, but if you would send an electrical impedance into it, utilizing the tissue, it would do something.
What would it do?
Well, it might give off a light, it might explode, it might, we don't know. So these things were taken to very secured, vacuum sealed, armor-proof.
So you don't know what the equipment was used for?
No, but we would test it, through these special bomb containers, these containers that, can protect you if it were to explode or if it were to do something to harm us. And they would measure, had many different sensors in this unit, this special type of, it looked like a giant hyperbaric chamber, a giant oval thing with very small glass portals, and you use robotic arms from the outside and stuff.
So you put your hands in like that?
Well, you don't put your hands in. You operate from outside of the container.
Okay.
And it's kind of like what they do today with surgery. If you heard about, there's
robotic
surgery now. You could be a
make
surgeon.
An incision, stick it in.
Right. And you can be here in the United States operating on someone in Dubai.
Yeah.
Electronic. So just like this, but we were doing it in a protective way. And some of these devices gave off brilliant, light, but we didn't know what it was. But what was interesting is it was all photon related, light related. And these craft, as many people see in the air, are giving off these interesting colored rainbow lights. And a lot of these instruments and things that were on these craft would do the same thing once they were activated with the DNA. And so then these things would be given off to different compartments and studied for years and years and years and years. And sometimes if we couldn't figure it out, we have spies in other places like the Vatican and other areas of the planet that are doing similar work.
Right.
And when we know they have something similar to this, we'll kind of make like an exchange trade, since maybe they already figured it out. So we would get sent over there to collect another specimen, or to read up on their data, what they already had been trained on for 5 or 10 years, even though we just currently got it into our system. And that was another amazing thing. So a lot of these tools that were there were actually keys for certain things, to open certain things they found out. There was sound to some of these things when they were boosting up, which was interesting. And we have special people that were there just to measure the light and the frequency, scientists. That's all they do. And they compare it to other databases from around the planet, which was very interesting. But I never got to grab a device and utilize it. I was only able to see it.
Well, you're a tissue expert, right?
Yes.
Why did they have you involved with these devices?
Because I had to harvest the tissue usually from both. The devices will not work unless the tissue from the craft and the tissue from the person who had the craft are together. So,
really?
Yes. And that activated these things. And then we found out that the craft alone, once we took one of these pieces of devices that we knew was harmless, but we didn't know what it did.
Right.
We took it out of the craft and away from the craft, and utilized the tissue within a certain amount of yards, that it would still work. But if you went too far away from the craft, it wouldn't activate. So there was some sort of energy field that they were trying to figure out. What is that? Is that a Bluetooth energy? Is it a frequency? Is it photons? We don't see anything, but somehow the craft knows that this piece of equipment is now this far away, even though it's genetically still running an electrical impedance through it for the cells to be active, that it doesn't work.
Would these devices sometimes, Emery, work on their own, where they just started doing something?
Absolutely. Some devices would start to heal the craft, where the craft maybe had a gash in it. So imagine a bunch of small little rocks going over an area, trying to
patch it up,
and working on its own in a non-threatening manner with beautiful lights and, just an amazing show of light and frequency. And we wouldn't do anything but just observe and watch, because maybe even though the person's not in the craft, maybe that is the person.
That could be.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
It could be. And
that's another concept I don't talk about too often, is that many craft, I believe, are actually extraterrestrial. They are the ET. They're conscious, these craft. They have a conscious to them. And when you know about the physics of the future of, the atomic structures and how atoms can be displaced and rearranged in many ways, like in teletransportation, when they break down your whole entire body and then they reassimilate it over here, and that's already been conquered too. Well, man, these ETs that are millions of years more advanced than we are, obviously can do a lot more than that. And people just think of an ET as a 3D entity, but they're not. They're light bodies that can manifest into many different things, and I believe they can actually be craft. The whole craft by itself, acting on its own without a visible person or ET there, and fixing itself and dematerializing and leaving the area and not knowing where it went or what it did, was probably one of the most amazing
right under your eyes. Poof, gone.
Just enfolds in itself in a small light, and it's gone. And
where did it go?
It probably went interdimensional. It probably went into another dimension. And what was interesting is this has happened many times. I found out later through the projects. I was just very lucky to witness something like this. And so for me, that's more than that's an extra intelligence.
That's amazing.
And that intelligence fascinates me because that's where we're going to be someday. And I hope we're going to be there sooner than later. So, and there was many people on these teams. It's not like I'm the only person.
Right.
But that was my specific specialty was that. So if they saw something, like maybe there was something on the floor or up on the ceiling that looked like a piece of organic
You're
material.
like the crime scene guy.
Yeah, this is kind of what it is. It's like a forensic type thing. So we would go in there in our suits and, and use just regular sterile ladders and things and figure these things out and take these samples and bag them and tag them and take them back to the lab
And what happened to them?
and run tests on them.
But what happened afterwards? Who confiscated them?
What I believe and came to the conclusion is after they find out what these tissues are, what vibrations they hold, what crystalline structures their DNA is made up of, they utilize these things and they sell them to like big pharma and other corporations, the data. Mm-hmm. And they'll make synthetic versions of this and make it into medicines or weapons or whatever. And that's what I believe.
These technologies are literally out of this world. When will we see them applied to making our lives better?
Well, we do every day. I mean, every day there's something, released such as...
But we don't know it's from that source.
Right. We don't know it's from that source. I mean, they just came out with a graphene diamond material that's, a millimeter thick and bulletproof. And I was recently talking about, these plants that we were retrieving from different places of unknown origin that were, thin and bulletproof.
Yeah.
And what's funny is they come up with new names. One was recently let off to the public, and it's a new amazing fabric, and it's graphene mixed with diamonds. And they come up with this new name of this new substance, which, I know 100% where they got that from.
Okay.
So when you see these new substances and these new materials come out, you can probably bet your bottom dollar that it definitely was reverse engineered or actually came from an extraterrestrial craft or extraterrestrial that they reverse engineered.
This kind of technology, was it given to us or did we find it?
I believe, because I'm not allowed to ask too many questions, but as you get in there more and more and more, you get to, listen a little bit more to the higher ups, and they kind of let you in on things. And I think intentionally ETs crash ships here and for us to help us evolve a little bit faster. But, there are many craft, of course, that we have shot down. And there are many craft in the space salvaging program, I call it, that they are cleaning up there because there's a lot of things floating around up there in space that they bring back, many instruments. One episode I talk about this harpoon type of device with an arm that was still attached to it. These things are very valuable to the corporations down here, and they like to bring them back, they like to test them, they like to see how the body is interacting with what, which is answering your question, consciousness-assisted technology. It has to do with that and also the biology of that person.
Have you ever seen a device, used it to cure something? Anything like that?
Yeah, actually being around extraterrestrial bodies and being around extraterrestrial craft, we had many scientists who had cancers and have had other debilitating things. I actually had a very bad disease.
You did?
At one time, and after being and working on this craft, this man's cancer was completely gone with no more tumors, and the bloodborne disease I had was immediately gone, which I didn't know until I got tested. It had to do, obviously, with this frequency that this craft was giving off that rearranged the genetics,
your molecules,
the molecules
and
or something to remove these negative ionic cancers and cells and things like that.
Can we reproduce that?
So that's what we did. So we reproduced these systems, these Teslatron units,
Okay.
that you sit in these rooms, and you get this dose of this energy, and we were able to cure, HIV in a month
By sitting in this,
by sitting in this.
What is a Teslatron?
It's a unit that Tesla developed, of course, the Tesla coil a very long time ago. And there was a doctor, I won't say his name, he just recently passed away, but a lot of the viewers know who I'm talking about, came up with this device that you sit in a room and you get these doses of this frequency from this unit, and it somehow teletransports the negative stuff out of your body.
Jeez.
And it was just recently taken over by someone who does not want me to have the access to it anymore, because I was going to bring it out to the public. But I just had a recent email come in from someone that says that they have another one that we should talk. So I'm going to engage in this, because this is such a cost-effective, cheap thing to have out there. It needs a lot more testing, of course, and it's here. So it's all about getting, the people and the engineers and the people who own the patents on this and the government to say, okay, you can have this device come out, but you can't claim it cures anything. You can't do that. So that's how I tricked the patent corporations when many of my patents were turned down, because I was saying, well, I concentrated stem cells with this, and we injected it into 100 patients' spinal cords, and
they were all cured.
They were all cured. And
you can't say that.
No, but I can say, well, I made this device. It concentrates, blood cells, and it's up to the doctor how he wants to utilize it.
That's okay.
That's okay.
Why aren't we getting this kind of technology right now to cure some of these things that you said you tested on? And
well, how long it took stem cells to get to the general public so we can use it in the U.S. Yet China and England and Thailand, everyone else has been using these technologies. So there's a lot of cures already out there, technology-wise, that other countries are utilizing. But it's just hard to get it here through the system because of all the politics involved with the FDA, with Big Pharma. I mean, the FDA gets 80% of their money from Big Pharma. They're going to approve their stuff a lot faster.
Half the staff members of the FDA were on.
You have these amazing physicians coming out with anti-aging regenerative proteins that will take at least 20 years to get to the public, which is ridiculous because they're all natural.
And it's right now.
It's right now. And then you have these amazing physicists and engineers who have made these amazing devices that I mentioned that, they're too scared to come out because it does demonstrate one other thing. So they're going to slap a National Security Act on them and say, you can't build this because this technology is property of the United States of America.
Of course. What do you think is going to be the biggest technological breakthrough that we got from ET technology that goes public?
That's going to be hopefully next year or the year after, and it's going to be over Unity.
And it sounds like it's coming from you. Possible?
Yeah, well,
and what will that do? What will that do?
It's going to change everything, because if you can demonstrate over Unity, which we've already done, and it's out of my hands, by the way. It's all been taken away from me, and it's in a very safe place. It's what the ETs use, and that's why they don't want people to know ETs exist, because then the scientists are going to say how they get here. Well, they use 0-point energy. So when you prove these things that you can make energy over and over and over and over, now you're going to get killed. It's like you got to be very careful of how you do it. So you incorporate them, and you say, hey, why don't we cut down on the nuclear stuff and incorporate this? And even though we still have to pay money, at least we're going to have a cleaner atmosphere, and eventually, just like any technology, it'll get more improved, and more countries will take this on board. And there are certain countries actually utilizing this right now, but they're not telling the civilians,
where it came from, and where it came from.
Right, because they're still, saving money on buying the oil they need to run their factories, cutting the cost down on that because they're using half free energy, half gas, coal, and oil.
Will we get an extraterrestrial craft that lands somewhere quietly and gives us some technology that's going to change the planet?
Well, they already have. This is what's going on. It's slowly being released, is what I'm getting at. They've been sharing the technologies. It's just sometimes, we mess up and we turn their backs on them because we use the technologies maybe for the wrong thing, or we use it for war, or we black box it and try to keep it just for certain organizations, individuals, corporations, politics. And so, right now it's like, how can we trust these guys? We've already went back on our word a million times. So let's just slowly trickle out some stuff to them, and they'll be smart enough to come up with it. And there's many, many devices out there of over unity, and many brilliant scientists have already done it. But of course, it's not just something you just can come out and, say you did it and
I wish we could.
And give. But there are people behind the project now that I handed everything over to that for the most important part is they don't want any money. It's the first,
That's rare.
It's the first investment group that comes forward, and
you think we're going to be able to use it?
Yeah, definitely going to be able to use it. It's going to trickle out. It's going to be in a safe way, and I think the government will honor it with open hands and open arms.
Are you glad you have had a glimpse of this technology?
Sometimes.
Or is it a curse?
Well, it's been a curse for quite a while. It's really hard to come forward. But after the support of everyone coming forward as well, and all the listeners out there having, given me positive responses back, helping to protect me, because if they kill me now, I'll look like a martyr. And
that's true.
And you don't want that to happen. It was kind of an unnerving choice to do it, but I had to at the time because it was getting too heated, and I'm just trying to do something good for the earth and everyone. I'm not trying to destroy big gas, coal, and oil and big pharma. I'm actually trying to bring us all together and work together to clean it up. You can still make money off us, but there's other ways to do things that we should, appreciate this planet and all the beings on the planet, and, come together as one unified group of conscious people so we can, talk to our brothers and sisters amongst the stars, which is why I'm here. I really want that to happen.
Good for you.
Because we deserve, this. We've been through a lot, everyone, I'm talking about the planet, and we need help.
Emery, thanks for being on Cosmic Disclosure.
Thanks for having me, George.
I'm George Norrie, and thanks for watching Cosmic Disclosure.
Coming this season on Cosmic Disclosure, where people share their clandestine involvement with government agencies, the military, and secret space programs.
Enormous craft, larger than a football field sometimes.
Oh my gosh.
And some are very small, as big as a Volkswagen Beetle.
The problem with anything that has secret in the name is the small print that you won't find out about for decades.
He said, we're going to borrow your consciousness, and you're going to be gone for 20 years.